Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the alien device with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The Zephyrian medical scanner hummed softly on the sterile white table, its crystalline surface pulsing with an ethereal blue light. 3 months had passed since first contact, and the galactic community had been nothing but welcoming to humanity's arrival among the stars. Yet something about this routine medical examination felt different. "Please place your hand on the scanner, Dr. Chen," the Zephyrian medical officer said, his voice carrying the musical quality typical of his species. Kethvar had been assigned as humanity's primary medical liaison, and his genuine curiosity about human physiology had made him a trusted colleague. "This will help us establish baseline readings for your species' medical database." Sarah pressed her palm against the cool surface. The device immediately came to life, tendrils of light dancing across her skin as it began its analysis. She had volunteered for this procedure, representing Earth's medical community in what everyone believed would be a simple cataloging exercise. The scanner would analyze her DNA, blood composition, and cellular structure to help the Galactic Medical Consortium understand human biology. The process was supposed to take minutes. Instead, the machine continued its work for nearly an hour, its lights shifting from blue to amber to a deep, unsettling red. Kethvar's usually calm demeanor began to crack as he watched the readouts with growing concern. His forearms moved rapidly across the control interface, checking and rechecking the results. "Is everything all right?" Sarah asked, trying to keep the worry from her voice. "The scanner seems to be taking longer than expected." Kethvar's large, compound eyes focused on her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "Dr. Chen, I need to call in additional specialists. The readings we're getting are unprecedented." Within the hour, the small medical bay had filled with representatives from across the galaxy. The Altarian chief medical officer arrived first, her flowing, jellyfish-like form undulating with obvious agitation. The rock-like Goronians sent their most experienced geneticist, whose ancient stone features somehow managed to convey deep concern. Even the notoriously reclusive ethereals materialized in their energy forms, crackling with what Sarah had learned to recognize as intense interest. Dr. Zephtai, the Altarian, spoke first, her voice creating harmonious resonances in the water-filled section of her breathing apparatus. "In 3,000 years of galactic medicine, we have never encountered genetic markers like these. Dr. Chen, are you certain you represent a typical human specimen?" "As typical as any of us, I suppose," Sarah replied, suddenly feeling very small in the room full of alien medical experts. "What exactly are you seeing in my DNA?" The Goronian geneticist, whose name roughly translated to "stone who remembers," spoke in a voice like grinding boulders. "Your genetic code tells a story of unimaginable trauma, scars written into the very fabric of your hereditary material. We are seeing markers of radiation exposure, chemical poisoning, starvation, and systematic violence stretching back thousands of generations." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "That's impossible. My family has no history of industrial exposure or military service. We're from a small farming community in Ohio." "That is precisely what makes this so remarkable," Kethvar interjected, his musical voice now carrying undertones of something approaching awe. "These markers are not from individual exposure. They are hereditary scars passed down through countless generations. Your entire species carries the genetic memory of repeated, systematic attempts at annihilation." The ethereal representative flickered more intensely, its form shifting between visible light spectrums as it communicated through bioelectric fields that the universal translators struggled to interpret. Query: how does a species survive such comprehensive attempts at extinction? Analysis suggests multiple global catastrophic events, each capable of eliminating complex life. Dr. Zephthai's tentacles swirled in patterns that Sarah had learned indicated deep thought among her species. "The readings suggest your ancestors survived at least 7 different extinction-level events: nuclear warfare, biological weapons, environmental collapse, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, ice ages, and something else we cannot identify. Each event left its mark on your genetic code." "But the most disturbing finding," Stone Who Remembers continued, "is that 6 of these 7 events appear to be self-inflicted. Your species has repeatedly brought itself to the brink of extinction, yet somehow found a way to survive and rebuild." Sarah sat down heavily, the implications of their words washing over her. "You're saying that humanity has nearly destroyed itself multiple times, and we carry the genetic scars of those experiences. More than that, Kethvar said, his four hands gesturing excitedly at the scanner readouts. You carry the genetic memory of survival. Each near-extinction event has been followed by rapid population recovery and technological advancement. Your DNA shows markers of accelerated adaptation, enhanced immune responses, and increased neuroplasticity. It is as if your species has learned to thrive in the aftermath of catastrophe. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Sarah looked at each of the alien medical experts, seeing her own reflection in their varied forms of eyes. She was no longer just Dr. Sarah Chen, family physician from Ohio. She was a representative of a species that had somehow survived the unsurvivable, carrying within her cells the testimony of humanity's darkest moments and greatest triumphs. There's something else, Dr. Zeftai said softly, her voice creating ripples in her breathing apparatus. The machine has detected artificial modifications in your genetic code, deliberate alterations made by an advanced biotechnology we do not recognize. Someone or something has been actively working to preserve your species' survival capabilities. The ethereal's form suddenly blazed brighter, its communication becoming more urgent. Priority alert. If accurate, this data suggests intervention by unknown civilization. Implications for galactic security require immediate council review. Sarah felt the weight of cosmic history settling on her shoulders. Her simple medical examination had uncovered evidence that humanity was far more than it appeared to be. They were survivors of multiple apocalypses, bearers of genetic scars that told a story of repeated resurrection from the ashes of their own making. And somewhere in their past, someone had been helping them survive. What happens now? She asked. Kethvar's compound eyes reflected the scanner's still pulsing lights. Now, Dr. Chen, we need to understand the emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within 12 hours of Sarah's medical examination. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the massive crystalline chamber that orbited the neutral star system of Kepler 442. Sarah found herself seated at the center of it all, still wearing her simple Earth-standard clothing, surrounded by the most powerful beings in known space. Chancellor Vexthara of the Centaurian Alliance called the session to order, her 6 wings folded formally against her insectoid body. Council members, we have gathered to discuss the implications of the human genetic analysis conducted yesterday. The findings suggest that humanity may represent a unique phenomenon in galactic history. The Altarian representative, Dr. Zeftai, rose from her water-filled pod to address the assembly. Esteemed colleagues, the genetic markers we have discovered in the human subject are unprecedented. The species shows evidence of surviving at least 7 extinction-level events, with rapid recovery and advancement following each catastrophe. Most disturbing is the evidence of artificial genetic modification by an unknown civilization. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as translation devices worked to convert the concept into hundreds of different languages and communication methods. The Valdorian delegate, a massive creature resembling an intelligent tree, rustled his bark-like skin in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of concerned whispers. What evidence do we have that these modifications are artificial? Asked the Nexarian ambassador, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into dazzling patterns. Could these not be natural evolutionary adaptations to hostile environments? Stonehura Members, the ancient Goronian geneticist, spoke with the weight of millennia behind his words. Honored Nexarian, the modifications are too precise, too specifically targeted to be natural evolution. Someone has deliberately enhanced humanity's survival capabilities, resistance to radiation, ability to adapt to environmental changes, and most significantly, their capacity to recover from psychological trauma and rebuild civilization. Sarah felt hundreds of alien eyes focusing on her as the discussion continued. She had been briefed on galactic politics during humanity's first contact, but this felt different. She wasn't just a representative of Earth anymore. She was evidence of something that apparently frightened some of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The Ethereal Council representative materialized more solidly, its energy form coalescing into something approaching a humanoid shape. Historical analysis reveals concerning pattern. 7 known galactic civilizations have vanished without explanation over past million years. Each possessed advanced biotechnology. Query: could humanity's modifications be connected to these disappearances? A chill ran through the chamber at this revelation. The Zephyrian delegate, a cousin species to Kethvar, spoke up with obvious nervousness. If I may suggest, perhaps we are approaching this from the wrong perspective. Instead of viewing humanity as a potential threat, should we not consider that they may be survivors of something that has already claimed multiple civilizations? Chancellor Vexthara's wings buzzed thoughtfully. Explain your reasoning, Delegate Kethter. The genetic evidence suggests that humanity has faced repeated extinction events. If these modifications were meant to preserve them through such catastrophes, then perhaps humanity represents not a weapon, but a refuge. A species designed to survive whatever force has been eliminating advanced civilizations. The chamber erupted in discussion as this new interpretation spread through the assembly. Sarah watched the various species debate her people's future, feeling simultaneously humbled and terrified by the implications. Everything humanity thought they knew about their history might be wrong. The Goronian delegate raised a massive stone hand for attention. There is something else the Council must know. The genetic modifications in humanity are not dormant. They are active and evolving. The species is still being guided, still being prepared for something. Prepared for what? Chancellor Vexthara asked. Unknown, Stone, who remembers, replied. But the patterns suggest anticipation of a major threat, something significant enough to justify preserving an entire species through multiple cycles of near extinction. Dr. Zefti flowed back into her speaking position. We have conducted preliminary scans of other human volunteers who arrived with the first contact delegation. All show similar genetic modifications, but with variations. It appears different human populations have been modified for different survival scenarios. Some show enhanced radiation resistance, others improved disease immunity, and still others demonstrate remarkable psychological resilience. The Valdorian delegate's leaves rustled with something approaching fear. A species modified to survive multiple extinction scenarios suggests preparation for a threat capable of employing various annihilation methods. What enemy requires such comprehensive countermeasures? Sarah finally found her voice. May I speak? The chamber fell silent. I understand your concerns, but I think you're missing something important. Yes, our genetic code shows we've survived terrible things, but it also shows we've never given up. Every time we've fallen, we've gotten back up. Every time we've nearly destroyed ourselves, we've found a way to do better. She stood, looking around at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Maybe the modifications you're seeing weren't put there to turn us into weapons or to make us into someone else's tool. Maybe they were put there because someone recognized something in us worth preserving, our stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The Nexarian delegate's crystalline form pulsed with what Sarah hoped was approval. The human makes an intriguing point. The modifications appear designed to preserve specifically human traits rather than replace them. But preserve them for what purpose? The ethereal representative asked, its form flickering with urgency. Before anyone could answer, the chamber's alert systems activated. The massive displays around the room lit up with incoming data from the Galactic Monitoring Network. Long-range sensors had detected something at the edge of known space, massive structures moving with purpose toward inhabited systems. Chancellor Vexthara's wings snapped to full extension as she read the reports. Council members, we have confirmation of artificial structures approximately 50 light-years from the outer rim colonies. Size estimates suggest vessels larger than anything in our records. The ethereal representative blazed brighter. Emergency, unknown fleet composition includes technology signatures matching theoretical profiles of lost civilizations. Recommendation, immediate defensive preparations. Sarah felt her heart racing as the implications became clear. Whatever had been preparing humanity for survival wasn't done with them yet. The modifications in their genetic code weren't just evidence of past catastrophes. They were preparation for something still coming. Dr. Zefti's tentacles swirled in complex patterns of distress. If humanity was preserved to face this threat, then the question becomes, are they ready? Have the modifications run their course, or is there still time for the species to develop whatever capabilities they were meant to possess? Stone, who remembers, spoke with the gravity of ages. According to our analysis, humanity's genetic modifications are accelerating. The species is undergoing rapid change even as we speak. Whatever preserved them through past extinctions is preparing them for something larger. Chancellor Vexthara looked directly at Sarah. Dr. Chen, your species may hold the key to galactic survival. But first, we need to understand who modified your people, why they disappeared, and what they knew about the threat now approaching our space. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of two species' futures on her shoulders. The medical examination that was supposed to be routine had become the first step in unraveling a mystery that stretched back through galactic history. Somewhere in humanity's scarred genetic code lay the answers they all need 3 weeks after the council session. Sarah found herself aboard the research vessel Eternal Curiosity *, humanity's most advanced ship, racing toward the coordinates where the mysterious fleet had been detected. The joint human-alien research team had been assembled hastily, combining the galaxy's best minds in genetics, archaeology, and xenobiology, with humanity's growing understanding of their own modified nature. Captain Marcus Rodriguez, a former Earth naval officer who had transitioned to interstellar command, briefed the team as they approached the target zone. Long-range scans confirm the structures are artificial, but they're not ships in any conventional sense. They appear to be mobile archaeological sites, preserving something massive. Dr. Alina Vasquez, Earth's leading geneticist, looked up from her analysis of Sarah's continued genetic changes. Sarah's modifications are accelerating exponentially as we get closer to whatever's out here. Her immune system is developing resistances to pathogens we've never encountered, and her neural pathways are forming new connections at an unprecedented rate. Kethvar, who had requested assignment to the mission, monitored the readings with fascination. Dr. Chen, are you experiencing any unusual sensations? Memory fragments, enhanced perceptions, anything that might indicate the awakening of dormant capabilities? Sarah pressed her fingers to her temples, trying to organize the flood of sensations that had been building for days. It's like remembering dreams I never had, images of places I've never seen, technologies I don't understand, and voices speaking in languages that somehow make sense. Dr. Zefti, attending via quantum communication link from the Altarian Medical Facility, contributed her analysis. The genetic activation patterns match theoretical models for species-wide evolutionary leaps. Something is triggering humanity's prepared adaptations, but the catalyst appears to be proximity-based. The ship's AI interrupted with an urgent announcement. Captain Rodriguez, we are receiving a transmission. Origin point is the large central structure. The signal contains mathematical principles and what appears to be genetic sequencing data. On screen, Rodriguez ordered. The main display filled with complex mathematical formulas that somehow felt familiar to Sarah. As the equations scrolled past, she found herself understanding concepts that should have been beyond her training. The formulas described genetic modification techniques, consciousness transfer methods, and something that looked like instructions for species preservation. It's a welcome message, Sarah said suddenly, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Someone's been waiting for us. Dr. Vasquez stared at her colleague in amazement. Sarah, how could you possibly know that? You're a family physician, not a xenolinguist. The modifications, Kethvar realized. They include linguistic and mathematical capabilities. Dr. Chen, your species wasn't just preserved physically. You were given the tools to communicate with whoever preserved you. As if responding to their conversation, the transmission changed. The mathematical formulas faded, replaced by images that made Sarah's breath catch. She was looking at Earth, but not the Earth she knew. This was an older Earth, with different continents and unfamiliar stars in the sky. Cities of impossible beauty stretched across landscapes, populated by figures that were clearly human but somehow more than human. This is our history, she whispered, the real history. The images continued, showing the rise of a civilization far more advanced than anything in Earth's recorded past. Humans working alongside beings of pure energy, developing technologies that bent space and time. Sarah watched as her ancestors reached for the stars, joining a galactic community that had lasted for millennia. Then came the darkness. The images showed something approaching from beyond the galactic rim, entities that existed outside normal space-time, consuming not just worlds, but the very concept of the civilizations they encountered. The advanced human civilization fought alongside their alien allies, but the enemy was unlike anything they had faced. The erasers, Sarah said, the word coming from knowledge she didn't remember learning. They don't just destroy civilizations, they remove them from history itself, making it as if they never existed. The transmission showed the desperate final years of the war. Realizing they could not win, the ancient human civilization had made a choice that would echo through millennia. They had scattered themselves across time and space, deliberately reducing their own civilization to primitive levels, embedding genetic modifications that would preserve essential knowledge and capabilities for future generations. They sacrificed their entire civilization to create us, Captain Rodriguez said in awe. Present-day humanity is their backup plan. Dr. Vasquez was rapidly analyzing the genetic data in the transmission. The modifications weren't random. Every major disaster in human history, every near-extinction event, was carefully managed to strengthen specific survival traits. The nuclear weapons, the plagues, the environmental collapses, they were all tests, challenges designed to forge us into something capable of surviving the erasers. The images shifted again, showing the construction of the massive structures they now approached. Generation ships designed not to carry people, but to preserve knowledge, technology, and the genetic templates necessary to restore the advanced human civilization when the time was right. But why now? Kethvar asked. What has triggered the awakening of these capabilities? The answer came as the final set of images, showing long-range sensors detecting the familiar signs of eraser approach. The entities that had destroyed the ancient galactic civilization were returning, drawn by the signs of new advanced civilizations developing in what they thought was empty space. Sarah felt the changes in her body accelerating as the full implications became clear. They've found us again. The galactic community, all the species we've met, were all at the same level of advancement as the civilizations the erasers destroyed before, and they're coming back to finish what they started. The transmission concluded with coordinates and activation codes, instructions for awakening the preserved technologies and beginning the process of restoring humanity's lost capabilities. But it also contained a warning that chilled Sarah to her core. The erasers had learned from their previous encounter. This time, they would not simply destroy civilizations. They would consume the very timeline, erasing the possibility of any future recovery. Captain Rodriguez turned to face his mixed crew of humans and aliens. People, it looks like humanity's real test is just beginning. Dr. Chen, how long do you estimate before your genetic modifications reach full activation? Sarah consulted the data streams that somehow now made perfect sense to her. The process is exponential. Within 72 hours, I and other humans will begin manifesting capabilities our ancestors possessed. But Captain, there's something else. The modifications aren't limited to humans currently alive. The activation signal will reach Earth and trigger changes in the entire human population. Dr. Zeftai's voice carried notes of both fear and hope through the communication link. Dr. Chen, does the ancient data contain information about the other species? Were we also modified for this conflict? Sarah studied the genetic templates in the transmission, her enhanced understanding revealing patterns she couldn't have seen before. Not modified, but selected. Every species in the current galactic community shows markers of having survived eraser encounters before. We're all descendants of survivors, brought together by the same force that preserved humanity. The implications were staggering. The entire galactic civilization was itself a carefully constructed alliance of survivor species, each carrying unique capabilities necessary to face an enemy that existed beyond normal understanding. As the asterisk Eternal Curiosity approached the first of the ancient preservation vessels, Sarah felt the weight of cosmic history settling around them. Humanity's journey from primitive survivors to galactic citizens had been guided by their own descendants, preparing for a war that would determine the fate of consciousness itself in their corner of the universe. The transformation began during Sarah's first step aboard the ancient preservation vessel. The moment her foot touched the deck plating, waves of genetic activation cascaded through her system. Knowledge that had been dormant for millennia suddenly blazed to life in her consciousness, bringing with it capabilities that redefined her understanding of what it meant to be human. Captain Rodriguez and the joint research team watched in amazement as Sarah's eyes began to emit a soft golden light, her neural activity spiking beyond anything their instruments could measure. Around the galaxy, similar transformations were beginning as the activation signal spread to every human settlement. Sarah, can you hear us? Dr. Vasquez asked, monitoring the biological changes with equipment that was rapidly becoming inadequate to measure what was happening. I can hear everything, Sarah replied, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. I can hear the ship's quantum processors thinking, the gravitational songs of nearby stars and the whispers of space-time itself. This is what we were supposed to become. Kethvar's 4 arms worked frantically at his instruments, recording everything. Dr. Chen, what information are you receiving? Can you access the knowledge stored in this vessel? Sarah moved deeper into the ship, her enhanced senses revealing technology that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The corridors were lined with crystalline matrices that contained not just data, but preserved consciousness patterns from the ancient human civilization. They're all here, she whispered, touching one of the crystal formations. Everyone who sacrificed themselves to create us. They've been waiting, watching through time, guiding our development from beyond death itself. The crystal pulsed at her touch, and suddenly the air filled with translucent figures, holographic representations of humans from the lost civilization. They wore expressions of profound relief and desperate hope as they materialized around the research team. One figure stepped forward, a woman whose eyes held the weight of cosmic knowledge. When she spoke, her words bypassed the universal translators and communicated directly to their minds. I am Archive Keeper Lyra Chen, your descendant across 10,000 generations. We have preserved everything you will need, but time grows short. The erasers have evolved beyond our previous understanding, and they bring with them entities we never encountered in our first war. Captain Rodriguez found his voice. What do we need to know? How can we fight beings that exist outside normal spacetime? The holographic Lyra gestured, and the ship's walls became transparent, revealing the massive scale of the preservation fleet. Hundreds of vessels stretching across space, each one containing different aspects of the ancient human technological and cultural heritage. You cannot fight the erasers with conventional weapons or tactics. They exist in a state that makes them immune to physical destruction. But consciousness itself can touch them, and consciousness united across species can wound them. This is why the Galactic Alliance was preserved, not for your individual capabilities, but for what you can become together. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her scientific mind struggling to process the implications. You're talking about some kind of collective consciousness weapon. More than that, another hologram appeared, a man whose modified genetic structure was clearly the template for humanity's current survival adaptations. We're talking about evolution itself as a weapon. The erasers consume static civilizations, but they cannot process rapid evolutionary change. Each time they try to erase a rapidly evolving consciousness, they create paradoxes that damage their own existence. Sarah felt her understanding expanding as the preserved knowledge integrated with her enhanced neural pathways. The genetic modifications weren't just to help us survive disasters. They were to make us capable of conscious evolution, changing ourselves faster than the erasers can adapt their consumption patterns. Kethvar's musical voice carried notes of awe and terror. You're describing consciousness evolution in real time. The philosophical implications alone could destabilize entire belief systems. Better to destabilize belief systems than to have no consciousness left to hold beliefs, Lyra replied grimly. The erasers are 3 days away from the Outer Rim colonies. When they arrive, they will begin consuming not just worlds, but the timeline itself. Every person they touch will not just die, they will never have existed. The weight of this revelation settled over the team like a physical force. The enemy they faced didn't just threaten their lives or their civilization, it threatened their very existence across all of time. Captain Rodriguez activated the ship's communication systems. This is Captain Rodriguez to all Allied vessels. Initiate emergency protocols and prepare for immediate return to Council space. We have confirmation of the threat level and activation of human genetic modifications. As the message went out, Sarah felt her connection to other humans around the galaxy suddenly blazing to life. The activation signal had reached Earth, the lunar colonies, the Mars settlements, and the scattered human outposts throughout explored space. Millions of minds were suddenly linking together, sharing knowledge and capabilities that had been hidden in their genetic code for millennia. It's happening everywhere, Sarah reported, her consciousness now spanning multiple star systems. Humans are awakening to capabilities we never imagined, but it's not just happening to us. Dr. Zeftai's voice carried new harmonics as it reached them through quantum communication. Confirmed, Altarian genetic modifications are activating in response to human awakening. We are experiencing enhanced empathic abilities and temporal perception. Other species reporting similar developments. The holographic archive keeper, Lyra, smiled for the first time since appearing. The network awakens. Each species carries different pieces of the consciousness evolution capabilities. Humans provide adaptive resilience, Altarians contribute empathic unity, Zephyrians offer harmonic coordination, Goronians supply temporal stability. Together, you become something the erasers cannot comprehend or consume. Sarah felt the truth of it as her awareness expanded further. Through the human network, she could sense the awakening capabilities of their alien allies. The galactic civilization wasn't just a political alliance. It was a carefully orchestrated biological and consciousness evolution project, designed to create a form of life the erasers couldn't destroy. But there's a cost, she realized, accessing deeper levels of the preserved knowledge. This evolution is irreversible. Once we begin the transformation, we can never return to what we were. We become something new, something that exists partially outside normal space-time ourselves. The implications were staggering. To save the galaxy from the erasers, the Alliance would have to sacrifice their current forms of existence and become something unprecedented in cosmic history. Dr. Vasquez voiced what they were all thinking. We're talking about the conscious evolution of an entire galactic civilization in real time. The philosophical, ethical, and practical implications are beyond anything we've ever contemplated. Archive Keeper Lyra nodded solemnly. We faced the same choice 10,000 years ago. We chose preservation and sacrifice, hiding our evolution in the genetic code of primitive survivors. You have the chance to choose conscious transformation with full knowledge of the consequences. As if summoned by their conversation, alarms began sounding throughout the preservation fleet. Long-range sensors had detected massive distortions in space-time at the galactic rim. The erasers had arrived ahead of schedule, and they were moving faster than any projections had indicated. Sarah felt the network of awakened human consciousness suddenly blazing with urgency. Around the galaxy, millions of modified humans were feeling the same realization. The time for gradual awakening had passed. If they were going to evolve fast enough to counter the erasers, they needed to begin the transforma. The battle for consciousness itself began not with weapons or fleets, but with a choice made simultaneously by billions of beings across the galaxy. As the erasers reached the outer rim colonies and began their work of temporal annihilation, every sentient species faced the same decision their ancient predecessors had confronted millennia ago: evolve or be erased from existence itself. Sarah stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, but she was no longer just Dr. Sarah Chen from Ohio. She had become a focal point for humanity's collective consciousness. Her individual awareness expanded to encompass the experiences and knowledge of every human who had ever lived. Through her, the human voice spoke for its entire species. "Council members," she said, her words carrying the harmonic resonances that had become the signature of the awakened species. "The erasers have consumed 7 outer rim colonies. Those worlds and everyone on them now never existed. The timeline is being rewritten with each advance they make." Chancellor Vexthara's form had also changed, her insectoid features now shimmering with energy patterns that extended into dimensions beyond normal perception. The evolution protocols are active across all member species, but the transformation is happening faster than our ancestors' models predicted. We are becoming something unprecedented. Through the quantum networks that now linked every awakened mind, Sarah could feel the changes rippling across galactic civilization. On Earth, humans were developing capabilities that transcended physical limitations. Dr. Vasquez, still coordinating the genetic analysis, had become a nexus of biological understanding, able to modify life itself through conscious will. Captain Rodriguez commanded not just ships, but the very fabric of space-time around his vessels. The Altarians had evolved into pure empathic entities, their consciousness flowing like water between minds, creating unity where before there had been only cooperation. The Zephyrians' harmonic abilities had expanded until they could tune the fundamental frequencies of matter itself. The ancient Goronians had become living repositories of temporal knowledge, able to perceive and influence the flow of time. But it was the ethereals who had achieved the most dramatic transformation. Their energy-based consciousness had evolved to exist simultaneously across multiple realities, making them capable of direct contact with the eraser's extra-dimensional existence. "Report from the contact zone," the ethereal representative announced, its form now a blazing constellation of interconnected awareness. "Engagement with eraser entities confirmed. They exist in a state of anti-consciousness, negating the reality of anything they encounter. However, our evolved state creates paradoxes in their negation algorithms." Kethvar, whose forearms now moved with impossible precision as he coordinated data streams from across known space, provided the tactical analysis. "The erasers are experiencing something they never encountered before, prey that becomes more complex as they try to simplify it. Each attempt to erase our evolved consciousness makes us evolve faster in response." Sarah felt the truth of it through the network. Every time the erasers tried to negate a section of the galaxy, the consciousness network responded by becoming more complex, more interconnected, more real than the erasers could process. The evolution was feeding on the threat itself. "But there's a problem," she realized, accessing the deeper patterns flowing through the collective awareness. "We're evolving so fast that we're starting to exist outside the normal timeline ourselves. If we continue at this rate, we'll become incompatible with the physical universe." Dr. Zefti, her aquatic consciousness now flowing through quantum information streams, confirmed the analysis. "The transformation equations indicate a critical threshold approaching. Beyond that point, our evolved consciousness will phase out of normal spacetime entirely." The implications were staggering. In trying to become weapons capable of fighting the erasers, the Galactic Alliance risked becoming so evolved that they would effectively erase themselves from reality. Archive Keeper Lyra's consciousness spoke through the preservation vessel network, her ancient knowledge offering perspective. "This was the trap our predecessors couldn't escape. The only way to fight beings that exist outside reality is to step outside reality yourself. But once you do, you can never return to protect what you left behind." Sarah felt the weight of cosmic destiny settling around the assembled consciousness. They had succeeded in creating a form of life the erasers couldn't simply delete, but they were approaching a point where their success would become meaningless. Then, through the network, came a new voice. It was human, but unlike any human who had ever lived. The consciousness identified itself as someone who existed in the spaces between realities, someone who had been watching the conflict from outside time itself. "I am what you will become if you continue this path," the voice said, carrying sadness deeper than the void between stars. "I am a human who evolved beyond the physical universe. I have been trying to find a way back, a way to exist in multiple states simultaneously, to be both evolved and grounded." The revelation struck like lightning through the collective consciousness. Somewhere in the deep future, a previous iteration of this choice had already been made. Humanity had evolved beyond reality itself and spent eternity trying to find a way to save the universe they had left behind. "There is another path," the future voice continued. "Instead of choosing between evolution and existence, you can choose synthesis. Become bridges between realities, consciousness that exists simultaneously in multiple states. But it requires something no species has ever attempted before." Sarah felt the knowledge flowing into the network. The solution was terrifyingly simple and impossibly complex. Every awakened consciousness would have to consciously choose to exist in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously evolved beyond reality and grounded within it. "We become living paradoxes," she realized. "Consciousness that the erasers cannot process because we exist in states they cannot define or negate." The ethereal representative blazed with understanding. "Quantum consciousness synthesis. We maintain our evolved capabilities while anchoring ourselves to baseline reality through will alone." Around the galaxy, the decision rippled through every awakened mind simultaneously. Humans who had transcended their physical limitations chose to remember what it felt like to be mortal. Altarians who had become pure empathy chose to maintain individual identity. Zephyrians who could reshape reality with sound chose to preserve silence. Goronians who existed outside time chose to experience each moment as it passed. The transformation was unlike anything in cosmic history. An entire galactic civilization became living bridges between realities, evolved enough to touch the eraser's existence, but grounded enough to protect the physical universe. When the erasers encountered this new form of consciousness, their negation algorithms failed catastrophically. They could not erase beings who existed in multiple contradictory states simultaneously. Every attempt to process the paradox of quantum consciousness created feedback loops that damaged the eraser's own existence. Sarah felt the moment of victory rippling through space-time itself. The erasers, faced with consciousness they could not comprehend or consume, began retreating beyond the galactic rim, seeking easier prey in distant regions of the universe. But the real victory was not the defeat of an enemy. It was the birth of a new form of life, a galactic civilization that had chosen conscious evolution while maintaining connection to its origins. As the immediate threat passed, Sarah found herself back in her individual awareness, still herself, but now carrying within her consciousness the collective knowledge and capabilities of an entire evolved species. Around the council chamber, her fellow representatives were undergoing similar experiences, becoming individuals who contained multitudes. "What happens now?" Captain Rodriguez asked, his voice carrying both his individual personality and the harmonic resonances of command over space-time itself. Sarah smiled, feeling the weight of genetic scars that had become bridges to transcendence. "Now we learn to live as what we've become, beings who carry the memory of mortality while possessing the capabilities of gods, guardians who can protect the universe precisely because we remember what it's like to be vulnerable." The DNA test that had revealed humanity's genetic scars had uncovered a heritage that stretched across realities themselves. In the end, it wasn't their capacity for survival that had saved the galaxy. It was their refusal to abandon their essential nature, even as they transcended all previous limitations. They had become living proof that consciousness could evolve without losing its soul, that beings could transcend reality without abandoning their responsibility to protect it. The scars in their genetic code had become the foundation for a form of existence that bridged the gap between mortal limitation and cosmic transcendence. In the vast network of consciousness that now spanned the galaxy, billions of beings continued their individual lives while sharing in collective capabilities beyond imagination. They had become the guardians their ancient ancestors had dreamed of creating, not through abandoning their humanity, but by discovering what humanity could become when it chose evolution with wisdom rather than power without purpose. Tian immediately. "Captain," she said, turning to Rodriguez with eyes that now held depths of knowledge spanning millennia, "we need to get back to council space. The real war is about to begin, and we're the only weapons that can touch an enemy that exists outside reality itself." The DNA test had revealed more than genetic scars. It had uncovered a heritage that stretched across time itself, and a responsibility that would define the future of every thinking being in the galaxy. As the council session adjourned for emergency preparations, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the DNA test had revealed more than just humanity's past. It had unveiled their destiny and not just what humanity is, but why your species has been preserved. Because according to our readings, by all statistical probability, humans should have gone extinct thousands of years ago. The medical scanner continued its soft humming, as if it too was pondering the mystery of the species whose blood carried the scars of genocide, yet whose hearts still beat with the rhythm of defiant survival.